It feels so exciting to be able to say that the new Christopher Nolan movie stars Josh Peck.
Detonator charged.
Welcome back to the channel, everybody. Today our movie in the middle is Oppenheimer.
4, 3.
Oppenheimer is Christopher Nolan's 12th film telling the story of the man who invented the atomic bomb and the fallout of its use both on society and on his own life. It stars Cillian Murphy, Robert Downey Jr., Emily Blunt, Matt Damon, and Florence Pugh. So, of course, this is the explosive second half of Barbenheimer that obviously did not bomb at the box office. All right, can I be done now? Are we good? I used all of the obvious ones. Are we good now? But for me, this was part 2 of Barbenheimer, and I finally got my shirt for it. I was super excited. I put it on my Instagram. I was a little too excited to have gotten this pink shirt. But I definitely think for me that going Barbie first and then Oppenheimer was the optimal experience. I would rather have seen them closer together, but unfortunately I had vacation in the way, so I had to wait a week. But man, this is an experience. Starting off with the highs, there is so much suspense in this movie. The way that it's told, which I'll talk about a little bit more in a second, just ramps up the tension in every scene of this movie. And it's 3 hours. You know that going in, you know it's long, and it sort of feels it, but it also sort of doesn't because it's just scene after scene. It is just so much suspense and build up to the things that are going to be happening in this movie. It's just insane. And it stars so many people. I named 5, but it stars so many more. Gary Oldman, Dane DeHaan, Alden Ehrenreich, Benny Safdie, Alex Wolff, David Krumholtz, Michael Angarano from Sky High, Jack Quaid, Jason Clarke, Casey Affleck, David Dastmalchian, Kenneth Branagh. I mean, this thing was huge. Now, with all that being said, how do you have such a huge cast and make it work? I'll say this. Everybody plays almost a bit part. Like, it's so long you can kind of fit everybody in, but there's so many people in this movie that, like, they will introduce somebody and then, like, an hour later it'll be like, oh, it's the guy. It's the guy. He's back. Hey, it's that guy again. It's that actor. It's like, you forget that there's so many people. And this is both a good and a bad thing, which I'll get to in a moment. But the good part about it was that it just made it feel that much bigger, because it's almost like you'd want to be in this cast. Like, there's just so many people, let's just keep stuffing them in. And man, it was just so cool because you just felt all of this ensemble gearing toward this one goal, and it made it feel like a huge story. And the other good part about that was just the acting was phenomenal in most cases. And it's funny because until it was pointed out to me, I didn't realize that Christopher Nolan's directing on actors is, okay. It is a little flat, and lines are put over really weirdly sometimes, and I saw it mostly in Tenet, but just dialogue conversations for me get super confused. Like, they're just really bogged down in Nolan movies. But in this one, it was good. The actors really ran with it, specifically Cillian Murphy, whatever, and Robert Downey Jr. They were fantastic. I mean, Robert Downey Jr. has to win this Best Supporting Actor. It was so good. And it is also just cool to see a movie where a lot of these actors who are in smaller things, or things that just, like, aren't taken as seriously or really just aren't that good, can be in this movie and show that they're good actors. Specifically, Dane DeHaan. I was so excited to see him in a role where it didn't seem like he was put there because he's just this okay actor and he's bad and he's been in Amazing Spider-Man 2, and we're not going to remember that. This, he was really, really good in, and it was cool to see that. My other big high of the movie is the visuals, as always with a Christopher Nolan movie, but not necessarily in just the ways that you're thinking, because yes, the visual effects, the practical effects that they used for the bomb is incredible, considering it was all practical effects. Incredible. But aside from that, the way that he constructs certain scenes and the creativeness, the abstractness that he puts into how he films them, kind of tying in the bomb stuff while also trying to, like, manifest how the character feels in that moment. There were a couple of scenes that did this that I was really blown away by. It was just, it really brought you into it. and made you feel what the character was feeling, but in such an interesting way. Now, that being said, I do have one big middle, which is the pacing. And this is a huge middle for me because it felt like the beginning of Elvis for me. And if you saw my Elvis review, you already know that I talked about the first half hour of that movie being like a montage rather than a story or like a movie. It just felt like a montage of quick scenes to get through the beginning parts of his life. And that's why I don't necessarily like biopics all that much of people and their whole lives, because it feels like you have to stuff way too much in just to get certain things across so you can get to the stuff that you really want to get to. And sometimes people try to go for their whole lives, and we can't do that, because you're either going to get almost nothing of substance, or you're going to have to skip over really big things. You know, just focus on one part of their life. And in this, that first half hour of Elvis is what the entire movie, save for a couple scenes, is like. There is music over every single scene of this movie because it feels like one giant montage of things happening and just ramping things up. Now, the reason it's not a low and it's a middle is because once I got used to this, it actually served the tone and the suspense of the movie really, really well. Like, I didn't love it at first, but I will say it kept it going, and it was very interesting. Now, I would have liked to have seen maybe more of like a series on this to get more in-depth with like the characters, since there's so many of them, and with the story itself. I really feel like it could have been better maybe as a series so we could dive into a lot of these things more, but it was very cool to have it be just sporadic, chaotic, hyped up the whole time. I have two lows. One of them is honestly Emily Blunt's character, and it wasn't necessarily her acting. I think it was more the writing of the character, the directing of the character, just the use of her character. It kind of felt like she was really robotic. Like, she was just odd. I just don't know how to place it. Like, she just didn't feel like a person for most of it, and it almost felt like they put her in just to like have a placeholder, like to fill this role for a subplot, which kind of actually gets into a bigger part of that low, which is the whole subplot of his romantic life just kind of felt skipped over. Like I was talking about before, it felt like they just had to put it in there for a couple scenes and then they were done with it. And it sort of does come back around here and there, but it felt so quick. I was like, do we even need it? Or we needed more of it? And that's why I'm saying it should have been maybe like put out in a series rather than one movie. My other low, and this is more maybe of like a personal one because I'm so stupid, but there are so many people in this movie, like I have already mentioned many times, but to the point where like there are conversations happening and I don't know what the hell they're saying because it's so much context. And yes, I should have gone to this movie with more context. I should be more historically literate, whatever, I guess. But they just keep name dropping people. And I'm like 99% sure we never heard some of these names before when they like introduce people. Like we got to a point, right, where basically if you're watching the movie, by the time that Casey Affleck shows up, I'm hella confused. And it was fine because I was pretty much able to like get through with like tone and how people are reacting and stuff like that. I was able to get through like what was going on. But there are so many parts of this movie that I was very, very confused about. Just historically, what's going on, who's on what side, what's happening. It was a lot of subtext, a lot of context that they expect you to know. They expect you to be able to like either already know a lot of these people or like very quickly pick up on who's who. So maybe that's just like a personal thing for me. I was a little annoyed by that, but that's definitely something that will get better upon each viewing. Still better than Tenet though. So overall, Oppenheimer was pretty great. It started off a little bit rougher for me, but just the suspense, the pacing the whole way through, even though it's super quick, it's intriguing. And by the time you get to the end, you get to the bomb scenes, you get to the courtroom stuff, it's just interesting. It just draws you in the whole time. It doesn't let up. You're on the edge of your seat the whole time. It was really, really cool. You gotta go see this in IMAX for the sound and for the visuals. It was awesome, and I would definitely put it at least the top half of Christopher Nolan movies if I'm ranking it. Probably maybe like 4 or 5. I'd have to think about it, but I definitely really liked it. I do have a few issues with it, which is why it's probably not in my like maybe top 3, but it was overall very cool, and for a 3-hour movie, I want to go watch it again. I'm going to give Oppenheimer a 3.5 out of 4. Okay, guys, well, this technically concludes the whole Barbenheimer event, so this has been lovely. Thank you to the world for creating this. But I do have something else coming, which I've already mentioned before. This was my like mini spoiler-free review, but I will be doing a discussion with one of my friends next week. She's seeing it this week, so hopefully we can get up by next week. A discussion of the movie with spoilers, with more in-depth thoughts on it, and also with a lot more context because she lives in New Mexico, where a lot of it took place and a lot of it was shot. So get excited for that because that's going to be like super awesome. Watch Oppenheimer again to get ready for it. Watch Barbie again just because you should. And as always, keep your hopes high, your stress low, and movies right in the middle. I'll see you guys later.